Welcome to Fight the Devil, episode number 7. Today is a historical occasion. 1st of February 2025 marks the first ever group podcast that I'll be hosting today with 3 previous guests. Allow me to introduce them in order of guest appearance. First, we have Callum, the entertainer, the cord unplugger, and a strong advocate to keeping tomato sauce in the fridge. Previously, we've been on the pod talking about Donald Trump's election vote, but since then, Callum's been dealing with a whole lot of plumbing issues at home. If these do ever get resolved, C-dawg, at this stage, it'll be somewhat of a pipe dream. Next, we have Mr. Impersonator himself, Tyrone. The man has recently upped his skills from the American president's imitations to Morgan Freeman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and even Thomas the Tank Engine. If we're lucky enough, we'll have a few renditions today, but I need to quickly highlight that Tyrone is a future best-selling author, having written the greatest 400-page mystery thriller book of all time. Previously on the pod, we discussed wrestling and CM Punk. But forget Phil Brooks. Tyrone is the new best in the world, and I am and will forever be his number one fan. Thirdly, we have Jeff, the great El Hefe. Previously, we discussed about neurodiversity. A very good chat. Jeff was actually scheduled to fill in for Santa Claus last year. The beard was sculpted perfectly, ready to get the big payday, as the real Santa Claus was busy at the psychiatrist. Apparently, he stopped believing in himself. Unfortunately, to my dismay, Jeff shaved the beard a week before Christmas 2024. But despite being very unrecognizable, his family still enjoyed his presence. Then there's me, also a future best-selling author, king of the dad jokes, generation leader, 3-time ping pong heavyweight champion, Mr. Most Improved twice in 1 year. I am Luke Martino, and this is what we call the Dream Team. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hello.
Thank you, sir.
Wow.
That was beautiful.
What an intro. Yeah, that was.
I can't live up to that.
Tears in my eyes, yeah.
Hope I did you boys proud.
Very much so.
It did.
Inflated our tires, well beyond.
The Dream Team isn't exaggeration. You know, we've heard this group coined for hundreds of years, but seriously, never, from the time we started all together, we've had chemistry instant. And I've never felt like I've laughed amongst a good bunch of blokes.
No, it's always good to have that because, makes life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Especially, it can get tedious from time to time, so it's, better to have a laugh than just sit in silence, I guess.
Yesterday I was prepared to throw myself out the window, I won't lie. Big difference between that and, being there in person and at least having people to riff off.
Yeah, it's good. You need that bounce sometimes, I reckon.
Definitely. And the occasional hanging shit on each other, and just makes the week easier, better and more fun.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's always good to know where you're at with Lord of the Rings there, Luke.
Yeah. It's the most important part of the week, really, hearing the updates.
Oh, yeah, it's important because we get to relive it through you, that first experience. So it's kind of important to us.
The core reason to getting this going earlier in the week was Jeff. Yourself, El Hefe, you were brainstorming some ideas on your future book. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, I forgot to mention that you're also a future best-selling author.
God, I hope so. Yeah, no.
You got a few published works?
Can't read.
Nothing.
Sorry, don't let me distract you.
Yeah, no, well, I was just sort of like noting down a couple of ideas that were just floating around in my head, but I'm starting to outline my next book and getting some of the thematic elements that I want to incorporate into it. So looking at the online environment, and I think we discussed how it sort of like channels people into certain subgroups and subcultures. And that's something I'm kind of a little bit interested in.
it was really brought to my attention that it was topic worthy on a podcast, particularly mine. I introduced this podcast about the disconnect between online and real life and the weakening of mass media. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think with social media and the way that algorithms work, where it finds out what you're interested in or thinks you're interested in, and then presents you with more and more of the same material. So what you end up having is this one-sided experience. It's basically being funneled into an information pool with these algorithms, and because the information pool is centered around the same
Very
belief
insular.
structure, the same thing, you're
Very
basically
insular, and there's so much of it.
right wing or left wing, and there's very little interaction between the two. So you end up in echo chambers, and then you find the communities and the groups that are echoing those same things, and because you're hearing it over and over, kind of gets drilled in a little bit. And I think people find themselves very susceptible to social media algorithms, really.
Man is a clever man, clever girl.
Thank you.
Like, if to kind of piggyback on that point, I think, like, as much as I don't want to get, like, too specific on politics, it's like 2016 was definitely the time where, like, before that, algorithms were definitely, you know, were prevalent in terms of politics, and, you know, you'd have your left and right wing. However, after 2016, I feel like it only broke off into, like, even more subsections, all aligning to very specific views that meant that the echo chambers only got further and thus louder. So that I guess by the time 2020 rolled around, everyone was already fixed into positions of, you know, everything that showed up was something that they would agree with, which meant that misinformation just runs rampant.
Yeah.
And especially over the last year, it's only gotten worse and worse.
Yeah. A lot of polarization.
Yep. It's like, I think, I mean, US politics is definitely a big thing, and you can see it's trying to be capitalized in Australia. I don't think it flies as easier because I think Australians are a lot more, not apathetic towards politics, but we're not as extremist about it. You know, our media is controlled by basically one singular apparatus throughout the whole country, meaning that it's heavily skewed in one direction. And then, you know, scrolling through, like, I don't know, Facebook or anything, it's impossible not to just roll your eyes whenever you see a horrible comment made by someone with a picture of a Commodore and an Australian flag as their profile picture.
Southern Cross
Like,
tattoos.
Yeah, it's and it is a little disheartening to see that how, I guess, comfortable once again, I guess, bigotry is started to become. I'm not advocating for everyone, you know, smelling the flowers and hug the daisies and all that, but a little bit of decency, and yeah, like on both sides has been lost. However, I feel like as someone who tries to remain neutral on as much as possible, I think it's harder to view that, especially with, you know, I guess the way social media has been weaponized over the last few years.
I think also Australian culture is very different from the US as well because of our origins. We haven't had really the issues that the US have had because, you know, well, guns, but also the way that the US was founded, and the way that
Freedom.
Well, one could argue on that one forever and a day, but
Yeah,
we've got a very different culture, and I think Australia, because it's in a way a much harsher place, that we've had to work together a lot better. And, you know, we've relied on each other for survival in, you know, from our very Western British import foundings, and then, you know, the way the Aboriginal communities had to basically work, and they had, you know, their own rules, their own laws, their own ways of doing things, that, you know, they were here for like, you know, 70,000 years. They've worked it out. Yeah, I think that it's just, I think our culture is very different. We don't fall for the bullshit, basically, and I think Australians are pretty good at sensing that.
yeah, that is the thing. I
think we also
do
just
feel.
Oh, sorry. You go. You go.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Cal.
I was just going to say,
your turn,
I
Callum.
think we, I don't know, at least my interpretation of it would be that we take the piss of our pollies who take themselves too seriously.
Very much so.
I mean, for God's sake, our greatest poly ever has, held a fucking beer chugging record.
Yep.
If you're trying to be all serious, you just get the piss taken.
Yeah.
Can't forget the
Australians are
onion,
a lot.
Callum.
Yeah.
Well, that's our greatest political moment ever as a nation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one thing about Abbott. He was such an asshole, but the thing is, the things that he actually did as a person were quite remarkable, and really, you wouldn't, he volunteered at life-saving clubs.
With his fucking budgie smugglers on.
Yeah,
just to provide a bit of context for anyone who might not know, the Prime Minister, so the head honcho of our country, was being shown produce and picked up a raw brown onion, bit into it, skin and all, like it was normal. No one to this day understands why that choice was made.
This was about 10 years ago.
An apple.
Yeah, he just there was an onion, and he took a bite.
Yeah, he was like Terminator Mark Zero prototype model.
Yeah.
And I think that Australia are able to see through the phony bullshit of our politicians a lot more, because I think that Australia, politicians, become so rigid because they're these people who have studied up, got their law degree, come from very significant wealth, and are now trying to relate to the common man. I mean, you saw Peter Dutton talking about housing prices the other week and saying that he saved up for his first house when he was 19,000.
Yeah, fuck
which
off.
Was just ridiculously ill-advised thing to do.
But also, that motherfucker had access to his family's trust.
Mm-hmm.
So, shut the fuck up.
In what?
Not everyone has a family trust, buddy.
Hardly the common man.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. Also, if I don't know if any of you are familiar with Friendly Geordies and his YouTube channel, and the way he took down John Barilaro was just absolutely amazing. But that is just so Australian, But yeah, that in itself is a history, and remarkable Aussie, great journalist, bit of a real funny bugger too. But yeah, he really, I think, revealed a lot of what our pollies are like, and really stuck it to him. So he's actually one of my heroes. So if you're not familiar, look him up on YouTube.
Yes.
But yeah, he's
genius.
The way he just took down John Barilaro in New South Wales and Gladys Berejiklian, absolutely amazing. But we need more people like that.
Because he took the fight to, the Murdoch press and the corruption that went unseen just due to a general apathy towards Australian politics. I think there is often this thing that's happened with Australia where it's just kind of like we are geographically far away from the rest of the world, so things can kind of seem cruisy. It's kind of everything's fine, but that does mean that people are taken advantage of, especially in sort of more rural areas, and that's what Friendly Geordies did. Exposing that sort of level of corruption.
Yeah, water rights is an interesting one if you're looking at rural Australia and the amount of corporate corruption that occurs. It's just absolutely phenomenal.
So is that all part of the brainstorming to that future book, Jeff?
It's more, I'm looking more at the personal level. So I'm just looking at, how people can get funneled into an idea, and then those that seek to basically use that power. God knows for what, but they want to be able to manipulate the information control to power. This is a theory I tend to think about, and this is probably what leads into what we're going to be chatting about, which is conspiracy theories and that.
That's right.
Knowledge is power, and if you can basically give somebody knowledge, then you are thereby giving them some form of power. And I think people gravitate towards these alternative facts, shall we say, and they take them on and they think that they know something that we don't know, and because they know it, think that they have some access to power or it empowers them in some way. And I think it's a dangerous path. And that's part of what I want to really write about in this thing that I'm working at the moment.
The Elon Musk thing. You look at the people who are defending him, and I think that the way that that sort of right-wing rich class has sort of weaponized this idea of sort of, tech guys and crypto bros, and all of a sudden this sort of the alpha male version of this guy who just racks up money. I mean, I saw this interview where Elon was standing in front of a dam, and a reporter asked him, what do you say to the reports that you're stealing water from these people? And he kind of just laughs and says, there's so much water here. And
What?
And then you look at the comments, and it is alarming to see how many people are just like, yeah, he's just slapping away the media. But it's just like, his actions are having such a negative impact right now on hundreds of thousands of people. However, through this guise of
sick burn, owning the chuds,
owning the chuds, or owning the libs, it's
doesn't mean that he isn't still stealing water from people.
Yeah,
oh, definitely probably is.
Yeah, he absolutely would be. Yeah, I find it odd. I've only met a small number of people who speak like this outright. However, a lot of these people are specifically keyboard warriors who will keep that to themselves, because I think in many of them, not all of them, unfortunately, they are aware that this mindset isn't accepted, but there is this sort of this feeling of, raging against the machine. Whereas really they are just servicing the top 1% and no one else.
There's a theory that, they're basically temporarily embarrassed millionaires themselves, and they're working their way out of it. That's that whole alpha mindset, that grind thing as well that comes into it. And Elon can do it, apart from his family owning, various gemstone mines in Africa. Then I can do it too. In this case, no.
Yeah, it's get rich quick almost sort of thinking.
All of that is a very good transition to the biggest topics that are going to be discussed today.
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking echo chambers, funnel into mentality, conspiracy theories. I'm going to just define what they are before we delve into some of them and get the boys' thoughts. Unless you guys want to warm this topic any further, Jeff, Tyrone, Callum?
No, good.
All right. So
no. I saved my power level.
Yes.
Charge up.
Preservation. Yeah. So conspiracy theory is often described as a human reaction to confusing times, typically irrational beliefs that contradict our everyday knowledge. What we discussed earlier, the echo chambers in social media algorithms have only pushed the population towards more emotional, conspiratorial material, allowing false conspiracy theories to spread a lot easier than 20 to 30 years ago in our parents' generation. We're going to run through a handful today, but first I want to get the Dream Team's thoughts on conspiracies as a whole. And we'll start with you, Callum. How much truth and validity do conspiracy theories have, in your opinion?
So, politely, I'm going to stop you there, even though you already stopped yourself. I fundamentally disagree with that definition of a conspiracy theory, because a theory is simply an idea that you may subscribe to, or something that you believe could be true. And a conspiracy is an agreement to perform together an illegal, wrongful, or subversive act. So conspiracy just means you and a couple of other people agree to do something illegal. And theory just means that there's the potential that, it could exist. And I think one of the greatest conspiracy theories is the changing of the definition of conspiracy theories to call anyone who comes up with these ideas, like a kook or a crazy, and discredit them. Because 9 times out of 10, there is an evidence base. Like the most recent and easiest one to think of is COVID. COVID came out of a lab. That was called a very harmful conspiracy theory. Turns out it was true. But it was used to discredit all those people who thought it, calling them conspiracy theorists and nut jobs and blah, blah, blah. Turns out they were all right. So, I think a conspiracy theory, the negative connotations that are associated with it Because sure, some people hold some fucking kooky ideas, but not always are those ideas kooky, and not always is the theory just a theory. A lot of the times there is truth behind it, or elements of truth. So I'd say like a conspiracy theory is it's just you believe that certain events happened because there was a plot or a subversion or whatever, not necessarily that, you know, you yourself are a kook. What do I think broadly of conspiracy theories? And this is where I'm going to become a massive contrarian. Yeah, broadly, most conspiracy theories are fucking nuts. And the people who hold those beliefs are fucking nuts. But I feel like there's levels to it, as there's levels with everything. You know, there's like people who deny objective fact, and then there's people who ask questions about what could have legitimately, conceivably actually have occurred. So broadly, I would say conspiracy theories, sometimes they're a theory, sometimes they're true. Sometimes the people who think them are nut jobs, sometimes they're just regular people.
Mm.
Right.
So,
Jeff?
basically a big nothing statement.
No, that's good. No, good to redefine the definition.
Wrote
So,
that
Jeff,
fence
your
well.
thoughts on the truth?
There used to be a computer game I used to play called World of Warcraft, which I think a lot of people might be familiar with. And there was one character that used to say, "Inquiring minds have got to know." And unfortunately, some of those paths of inquiry, for those that fall into that conspiracy theory, tend to get convinced by self-referencing material, illogical arguments and conclusions, and I think it goes back to what I was saying before, that I think people actually feel, and it's a psychological thing, I think they like the sense of empowerment, that believing in something that might not be readily accepted, that they actually like, because it does give them that sense of power. And I think it's more of a psychological thing than it is anything else. And also, these conspiracy theory groups are a community within themselves. And of course, one of the things that people like to be able to do is to feel like they belong. And, you know, something a little bit more intimate, which a conspiracy theory group provides. In a way, it's kind of like a replacement of religion in a lot of ways, where it's got that same draw of that belief, that faith.
Cult-like
I believe
obsessions.
this to be true, and I think it's more
Yeah,
of
and
a
that coming
psychological-
together of people who share a like view, and it's a safety.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's community, and I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people are missing these days.
Yeah, okay. Replacement for that intimacy that's not had amongst family and friends.
Yeah, well, see how many neighbours that you know their name of. Walk outside and, you know, point to the people next door and down the street. If you don't know their surname, that's very different to where we were 50 years ago.
Most definitely. Big Rone, your thoughts?
Odd one in terms of conspiracy theories, because it was never something that was of massive interest to me. Like, you know, I could echo the points that Cal and Jeff have just made in terms of, you know, the reason why people buy into them. But at the same time, it is always like this interesting sort of rabbit hole to go down, to be like, oh, what if this happened? And this happened because this happened. And, you know, like one which I always subscribe to is that, you know, they did JFK. And like, it's so there's those ones which are kind of like fun to go into. What I find a lot more harmful, I guess, are those ones that, I don't know, stuff like, I don't know if you've heard about Pizzagate, or sort of these conspiracies that are so fantastical in nature, yet are believed in to such an extent by groups of people that would simply be referred to as, you know, poorly educated. And that's where it becomes dangerous. That's where cults become born. Waco, Jonestown, very easily influenced people who, like Cal said, are, you know, very, who are looking for that sort of safety blanket that they don't get with their friends or families. That's what happens when a lot of people join cults. They completely cut themselves off from their previous life.
Mm.
Well, yeah.
A
That's
beautiful
good.
amalgamation of ideas.
I love it. Yeah, great. I know there's many different ways to even look at conspiracy theories as a whole, and definitely different times. Jeff, you mentioned 50 years ago, completely different to
Yeah.
our sense of belonging, our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, like
Great board
I'm older than you guys. I grew up, as a little kid in the 70s and, teenager in the 80s and so forth. And yeah, we knew, we knew who our neighbours were. We knew them by name. I think we live in a society today where, that's rare.
I have to profess that, like, even as a kid, as a young'un, I would know my neighbours and feel comfortable walking into their home. And it's just like 20 odd years ago. I'd feel comfortable doing that, but these days, I have no fucking clue who lives next door to me. Or even just walking down to a mate's place, not even calling him on the phone. Just walking down, seeing if he's at home, and if he was, we'll have a play date.
Yeah.
There's long time stories. You might have heard these footy yarns, Tyrone, where kids come home from school. Like this is probably in Jeff's era, where you'd be kicking the footy and the cars could barely get through to their residing neighbourhood areas because there'd be kids blocking off the roads having a kick.
Oh, that was even when I was a kid. Like it felt the same way then.
Say in the mid 2000s.
Yeah,
Probably when
yeah,
things
like
started
mid
change.
2000s, even
iPhone.
early. Adults had phones, but for the majority of the time, kids wouldn't. Kids like, especially like around that primary school age, would never have sort of devices like that. However, then as soon as I want to say when the iPod Touch came out, that sort of gave children greater access to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all this stuff that was really harmful, especially to a 12-year-old mind. And then you look at
not like MySpace. MySpace was gangster.
Yeah, it was too.
Yeah. But then you look at what's happened today, and the reason why there is like just an epidemic of teen mental health and youth suicide rates are alarming. It's because social media is just thriving off the naivety of children. Yeah,
I don't have Instagram because Instagram is just a way to sell things to you by making you feel bad about yourself and your life.
Yeah,
it's just
that's fighting the devil right there. Right when they're not aware, the brain isn't aware at that age that they're being taken advantage of, exploited. Kids don't need that influence that early. You should be kicking footy on the road.
The social media is
should be playing in the cars and the traffic.
Running around the scrapyards and hitting each other with steel panels.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with hitting each other in the head with steel panels. It's good for you.
Yeah.
I think definitely in Jeff's time, this was probably not our time. There was stories of kids going onto construction sites totally unmanned.
Oh yeah,
not unsupervised. How was that, Jeff?
It was awesome. It was fun. It was dangerous.
It's called exploration. It's called risk management.
Like late 70s, early to mid 80s. Say around about late 70s. A lot of construction in the area where I was working, residential houses, everything like that. And there were no fences. You could, climb among the framing, find all sorts of stuff and nails sticking out of bits of wood, shredded pipe sticking out of the ground. I think tetanus shots were basically mandatory, at least once a year when I was growing up because, it was just the nature of things and there was nothing on TV, still nothing on TV. So you go out and do
I disagree. Maths is on. For anyone who doesn't know what maths is, it's the world's greatest television program.
Export at this point.
Well, where they take a bunch of horrible, vapid, soulless people who just want their 5 minutes of fame, and then pretend to marry them with another soulless, vapid, bogan scumbag who just wants their 5 minutes of fame. And then those two people try and put up with each other for as long as possible because they want to stay on the show so they can increase their follower count.
Sounds like my first marriage.
Right in the feels. Anyway, hit us with what's our first theory?
All right, we've warmed up pretty well. Let's get into it. Moon landing back in 1969 never happened. Thoughts?
Stanley Kubrick is an amazing director. And I mean, it is interesting to read into Like the stuff about, is it the shadows aren't right?
Oh, on the yeah.
I don't know enough about it, but and I also do like the whole thing where it's like the Americans faked it because the Russians were getting close. Um,
The Russians
But-
weren't even getting nowhere
Yeah.
near close to it.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's like it's one of those ones where it's like you would have to have so many co-conspirators. Plus, I mean, you're kind of taking a piss of all those astronauts who got exploded and saying that that wasn't real.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know.
I think
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson's really done great breakdowns of that, and some of the moon footage, you can't fake it because the way that it was, the physics of it add
Yeah.
up. And the other factor is that, like you said, there would have to be so many other people involved that no one would be able to keep their mouth shut for this long. And it was actually cheaper to send somebody to the moon to film it.
Just
And what
battle
would have
these
been
fuckers
doing-
off.
That is the thing. The amount of money that you could make by just saying I was part of the moon landing conspiracy. I mean, that same sentence, you could argue that those people are paid millions of dollars to keep their mouth shut. But like,
Yeah.
it is fascinating to hear those specific conspiracy theories. I don't share any belief that the moon landing was faked.
I also, it kind of makes me feel a little bit sad that you'd be so like railing against one of what is humanity's greatest achievements, like landing on another celestial body and putting boots down. Like you really don't want us to have progressed like that, bro. Like, come on, dog. That's pretty cool to think that we are capable of that. Obviously, these days with the whole politicization of space,
That's
it's gonna
why,
be very difficult to go
contrarianism
back.
is a horrible, horrible thing. It's just like everyone on the internet is racing as soon as anything happens. I mean, even that horrible plane crash that happened the other day, people on one political side were definitely very quick to sprint to DEI as the excuse, which is just
I've seen
absurd.
that coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just sad.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind of like I don't know, the discreditation of the greatest achievements as a species. I don't know. I would prefer to believe that we, even if it was faked, I would prefer to believe that we did get there as a humanist because it's a great crowning achievement and it brought a lot of people together. So
Yeah. And look, even if it was fake, what a remarkable achievement to be able to fake it so
Exactly.
well.
yeah,
To convince the entire world that it was real.
That
like
needs to be
Orson Welles.
celebrated as well if it was fake.
Yeah, the same way we look back at Orson Welles and War of the Worlds.
yeah, the greatest prank. What about you, Luke? Do you believe the moon landing was fake?
I don't know enough about it to have an opinion on it.
Look
But
at Mister on the fence.
On the fence.
Oh.
Luke thinks we never went to space.
Yeah.
All those satellites up there that you can literally see in the night sky, that's just part of the giant screen dome that covers us all.
Yeah.
Luke thinks he is Truman.
Well, if they went to the so the other issue is if they went to the moon, they would have discovered that the Earth is actually flat.
Yeah.
They would have had to pass through. What do they call the dome? There's like they call a special name. I can't remember what it was, but it's like some alternate word for membrane or something. Whatever. Then they would have through the filament or whatever the fuck they call it. Oh god, I think we've just given ourselves away that we don't believe that the Earth is flat. Shit.
that's our next question, funnily enough.
Yeah. Fuck. The Earth is actually flat. Everything I just said was a lie to throw you off. Checkmate.
Before jumping to that one, Callum, would more lean to your belief about the discreditation. Don't want to take away the hard work and the achievement of getting there. And here's a fun question as well. Would you boys ever want to go to the moon?
No.
Just the risk associated. Like I'm gonna out myself as a bit of a chicken shit here, but getting in a plane, that kind of scares me a little bit because of the risk associated. I just think, yeah. I don't know. There's so much that can go wrong. One fucking, gram of propellant goes in the wrong tube and the whole thing's gonna fucking Challenger. I don't want to explode. I'm kind of happy living. Maybe if they can make it like super duper safe, sure.
Yeah, I'm completely opposite. I'd go in a heartbeat if I had, the $250 million you required.
To pay Richard Branson to go to the moon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hello,
I'd be-
boss. I skydived into work today. Like, what am I meant to do?
How much does it cost to go to low Earth orbit these days?
Too much.
Because didn't
Less
they're
than
doing
the
they aren't
Titanic.
they're currently doing it, aren't they?
No, I
Yes.
think that they're only doing a.
Virgin
Was that
Galactic.
just yeah? They did a trial run where they sent a couple of people to quote unquote space, which is really just like low Earth orbit,
Yeah.
not actual space.
How long does it
the
take?
tickets- Oh, God knows.
That's it. And doesn't it take like 3 to 4 days to get to the moon?
Yeah,
Gonna have to watch Apollo 13 again now. Actually,
That's a
good
great
film.
movie.
yeah.
Anyway, sorry, sidetrack.
All right. That's right. Thought we'd add a fun question in there before the next theory. The Earth is flat? Question mark.
100% true.
Yeah.
Right.
Next
Expand.
question. No.
Yeah, 100% true. Next question.
No.
Yeah.
Look, I've never been to the giant ice wall, so how can I claim that it isn't flat?
No one
You
has.
globalist,
No
you
photos of it.
globist, globetard.
Yeah, I think it's one of those fun things that people kind of jump. I think there's a Flat Earth Society that was really set up as a joke, but I think some people didn't get it. Yeah, it's been
A
interesting.
wild ride ever since.
Yeah, I think there was a thing on. I can't remember. It was Netflix.
The
where I saw
Netflix
it.
doco.
Yeah, where they
Yeah.
basically they're going, the Earth is
Beyond
flat,
the
and they're doing
curve.
this big science experiment, and no, it's round.
Yeah, at the very end of the television show or the doco,
Yeah,
they do a test and it ends up with them proving the Earth is round, and the guy just goes, "Huh, that's interesting," and then it just cuts to black, and that's it.
that was brilliant.
That's the editing on that.
Oh, that was
High
the
quality.
perfect ending.
Big Rone?
Huh.
What do you reckon?
What did I say? What did I say at the start of your question?
It is flat. Next question.
Yeah, I'll repeat that again.
Yeah, he's not going to get sucked into any globetard propaganda.
Yeah, normies, get off my stream.
Yeah. This guy's switched on.
Yeah, ask a real question.
Oh, you know what they
Luke,
say,
you're starting
Tyrone?
to sound like you're starting to sound like a controlled opposition right now.
Yeah, Tyrone, you're gonna have to pick a side, or the side will pick you.
Yeah, and I picked the side of the Earth that I'm on, and then the other one, which is the magical upside down rock land, which the human race has yet to be deemed worthy of. And then
Well, I just think it would be incredibly like. Have you ever like sort of like laid down just like outside at a park or something on your back and looked at the sky and sort of gotten like agoraphobic, like holy shit, I'm gonna fall off the earth. Like how terrifying would it be if it actually was flat and you could fucking fall off? Like holy moly, it'd be scary. That's some scary ass shit. And especially we live on the bottom, Oh,
I'm no
wait, there is
physicist,
no
but
bottom.
it just doesn't make sense. Like,
Yeah, especially when we can literally see other celestial bodies in the sky and none of them are flat. So, but that's the screen. Fuck, I keep forgetting about that part.
the screen is my favorite part. I
yeah.
prefer. Would you prefer a screen or just a straight up flat Earth?
As in, wait, what?
Like,
Because doesn't it have to be a projection, like by definition?
to make it
Like the planetarium.
Yeah. It would like it would
Yeah.
have to be that, wouldn't it?
Maybe that's what the Empire State Building is. It's the big projector.
Oh, it's shooting a giant laser beam into the sky that
Yeah.
projects. Yeah.
And that's why they took down the two towers, because it was blocking the picture.
Because that was an interference matrix.
Exactly.
Segway.
Oh, Jesus Christ. But that's another interesting conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Was supiste.
We just jump right into that one, shall we?
well.
9/11.
9/11 inside job. Let's get our thoughts.
No government's competent enough to pull it off.
No, that was a ridiculously. I want to be careful with my words here. It was a ridiculously well executed plan that pinpointed the flaws in the. I guess the US had a certain complacency around security measures, and given all of the intel and training that the US had provided, too many of those hijackers and Al Qaeda meant that this was something that
was possible to do.
Yeah, it was possible. Yeah, right. That these guys could go get into a plane with box cutters, have easy access to the cockpit, have knowledge and ability to fly these planes.
Holy shit! How did they fly the planes?
Right, they had
Actually,
training.
it's not that difficult. I would assume, right?
No,
Flying a plane, it's just a yoke, and then you just sort of go, wee. Oh, there's a building.
Yeah.
Also, apart from lessons, they also had Microsoft Flight Sim.
Yes.
So
Lord knows the world's best terrorist education platform, Microsoft Flight Simulator.
So doing it itself is actually, in a weird way, less complicated than it was made
coming
out
up
to
with
be,
the conspiracy.
because 4 of them happened, right? It was the 2 for the towers, the 1 for the Pentagon, and
then the one that got shot
the
down.
one would have been the Capitol. Yeah, the one that crashed would have been the Capitol. That to me is a more interesting conspiracy. I don't think 9/11 was an inside job, but I do think that there is a lot of weight to this thought that United 93 was shot down before it could reach the Capitol.
Although it is the other theory that it was the crew, the passengers who realised what was going on.
Yeah,
just went, we're dead anyway.
Mm-hmm. Which is definitely which and given that there is audio recording of the passengers aboard Flight 93 as they are beginning to fight back. That is 100% what I believe. It's just in terms of the weight to the conspiracy itself. Yeah, I think that one has more weight to it than this whole idea that the entirety of 9/11 was planned by the US government.
Yeah.
However, the US government don't do themselves any favor with how they handled it afterwards.
It's the last place that they would have hit was actually that World Trade Center, because what was occurring in there.
Yeah.
Which was all the, for a capitalist society, you don't want to weaken, the trading functions and everything like that. And that's exactly what was occurring in there. And, not the place the government would have selected to hit. They would have preferred to hit a primary school or a secondary school if it was going to be a government conspiracy, because then they got sympathy.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if they were going to do it, they would have hit a hospital or something, They wouldn't take out the main source of capitalist funding because the money interests would not want that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an odd thing because we were discussing it earlier in the week. It was this idea of Halliburton and what Dick Cheney was able to do, and the millions and millions of dollars that he's made since the invasion of Iraq. And I think the movie, there are several movies about, post 9/11 and the Bush administration. But one I always enjoyed was Vice, and watching sort of not so much the invasion itself, but the planning of it and how the US government learned to figure out what the right buzzwords were with the American public. One of the, when they're saying that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction, and they are...
and Hans Blix was saying they don't.
Yeah, and then there's this whole marketing strategy where they're just like, this is the wording we're going to use.
Iraqi freedom.
Yeah, we're going to liberate the people of Iraq. Yeah.
It goes back to the first Kuwait invasion when George Sr. was, the Yanks were itching to get back in there and finish the job, basically.
Yeah.
Which was kind of stupid because it didn't really work out in their favour at all.
Well,
No.
that's kind of because of what they did after they quote unquote liberated the Iraqi people, which is
Evacuate
basically
immediately.
sacked everyone in the government.
Hmm.
And all those people were like, well, fuck it. I'm
Yeah,
going to go take all these guns, and you've just made me fucking redundant and said that I could never, do any government functions again. Fuck it. I'll take my matters into my own fucking hands. Fuck you. Like, I understand where you're coming from, getting rid of the party that Saddam was a part of, but also, no, that's stupid because that was, like 90% of the fucking government. How does a government function without 90% of the fucking government? It doesn't. You just made this huge power vacuum. And all those people who were in the military, you've now just royally fucked off.
Also, the problems in Iraq go back long before, Western influence. It goes back to Muslim Shia and Sunni.
Well, it goes up to the Brits and how they decided to just put arbitrary lines on a map and say, welcome, this is the new Middle East 2.0. See all these fucking different people groups that historically don't get along? They're a country now. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
George, have you got some more tea? Yes, I do. I believe it is tea time.
They get out of there. Yeah.
Well, that's what they did.
That's
They just
English.
fucking put lines on maps and went,
Yeah,
this
it
is
was-
where geographically I would put a border. Okay, but what about all the people groups that you've now just sort of lumped into a single nation state?
There is a reason why they did that. It's because if they were busy fighting each other, they didn't have to worry too much about doing any actual policing and development.
Yeah. Or it just makes it very easy to waltz in and set up
They control.
/ say, hey, I am going to extract your oil,
Mm-hmm.
but because you are all separate and fighting, I will support your militia group if you give me the oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens in Syria.
Yeah.
Just going back to 9/11, we discussed the role of George Bush at the time. Reading the book to the primary school kids. Could we discuss some of that? It was conversed during the week.
What was it? We're gonna go in. We're gonna free them. We're gonna take over. Now watch this drive.
Now watch this drive, yeah. Because I don't know if you've seen Fahrenheit 9/11, but it is a fascinating look at the incompetencies that led to 9/11.
Yeah.
Particularly the main one is Bush is in Florida, meeting up with his brother who's the governor, and they have in their hands, there's a photo where the documents inside are do pertain to Osama bin Laden is planning an attack on the United States. However, he spends that whole weekend kind of just golf, playing with his dogs, doing some wood chopping. It's bizarre. And then he goes to do some PR at a school while, Cheney's running the country. And that's when it all sort of happens. But it is fascinating to see in US history how historically leaders who go through like wartime or a horrible disaster, a terrorist attack, usually come out
stronger.
Yeah, stronger. They're seen as better. And you can look through it, like the way that the presidents were viewed during wartime, like FDR, and sort of the way that the US got behind their presidents. However, it is interesting to see when COVID comes around and how quickly they turned on Trump. And then as soon as things were back to normal, where the biggest problem in the US was, inflation, or that's what we were led to believe in the last election, that's when they wanted Trump back. So it's kind of, it's very interesting to see that, and Bush winning that election so handedly while Iraq was still going on. Like the invasion was done, but Saddam was still alive, I believe, at that time. during the campaign of 2004. But yeah, it's such a weird time in it, and the way that the world has massively changed since.
Now watch this drive.
Now watch this drive, yeah.
Luke, if you don't know what that is, it's like good old boy George Bush making like a quite serious announcement. I think it was about
we're gonna get him, we're gonna drive him out.
Yeah, like it was like basically, I think he was effectively talking about basically going to war or something along those lines. And then he's making this announcement on a golf field, and then he goes, "Now watch this drive."
Watch this drive.
It's such a good clip.
We're gonna take it to him. We're gonna take it to the terrorists. Yeah. And then in his second term, he tanks the economy. So whether he gets an
but did he tank the economy for himself or just for average people?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Because
checkmate, bitch.
There's a lot of people who benefited off that. That housing market's crashing into oblivion, and then he left it up for our good friend Obama,
Barack Hussein.
Go Tyrone. Let me be clear.
My fellow Americans.
Today, you have no house. That'll change. But probably not. I love you too. That's all I got.
Have you seen the Boondocks, where he's like, where there's like the fried chicken apocalypse, and then they have like, now here is a message from the president, and it's like he's like, my fellow Americans, I'm sure many of you are scared right now, but just to let you know, I am safe, as is my wife and Bo, the little dog. We will be safe in the presidential bunker. And then he goes on to disavow Huey. Basically, fuck him.
It's great stuff. Have you ever seen that clip from the Boondocks where the teacher uses a certain word?
Yeah. Uses
about borrowing a fry.
Yeah.
Borrow a fry?
That's fucking real, dude.
Yeah.
That's the greatest part of that. It's not even a beer. That's just real.
It's real. Is he gonna borrow French fries? Is he gonna give it back after he's eaten it?
Yeah. You got.
What's next, Luke?
Sorry.
No, well, look, I'll just conclude by struggle to have any feelings outside of sadness when it comes to the 9/11 incident due to the facts of 2,978 casualties, and the sadness also felt when entering the 9/11 museum. You've also entered that too, Tyrone. Very extraordinary that there's like absolute silence, just feeling that emotion of brokenness, emptiness, just really sad. Before we go on to the next topic, what was your recount of an experience when entering the 9/11 museum, Tyrone?
Probably one of the most sort of, I haven't lived a long life yet, but it is one of those moments that you don't forget. And I think it's one of those, because I was 17 when I went, and I remember just the going, more so leaving it, and the amount of perspective that you kind of gain on it, especially on, like, because that is not so much, it's not like a graveyard per se, but it is more so a dedication to the bravery of so many people that day. I mean, it is kind of incredible how divided we can feel at times, but seeing sort of the unity that was forged out of that is pretty incredible to see. And it also does make me sad, because you like, if something horrible like that happened today, you can only imagine sort of how awful the discourse would be following it. The conspiracy theories would be outraged because the way social media works. But yeah, to seeing in that one moment of time, there's still something hopeful about it.
I just feel sad for the millions of Iraqis who got yoked because of that justification as well. You got to think not just about 300,000 Americans odd, but also literally like millions upon millions of people's lives in the Middle East who were destroyed because of that justification. And it was all because of their incompetence. They caused it.
Yeah, instead of going after bin Laden, they went straight for
Saddam. Or instead of just saying to the fucking Saudis, why were most of the hijackers fucking Saudi? That's inconvenient because that's where they get all their oil from. So, let's go after the next best thing.
Saudis have enough problems dealing with the arm that caused it anyway, which is a branch of Islam known as Wahhabism. And it is the most...
Wahhabism.
Yeah, it is the most fundamentalist,
Yeah.
backward, medieval type interpretations you can imagine. And, it's a harsh belief for a harsh people from a very harsh environment.
Yeah.
And, it's... Like, I remember watching it because I was old enough at the time. And, I just remember watching it on TV, the news broadcast being interrupted. And, just the whole thing unfolding. And I was up, for hours just... And you knew something big was going to change. There was this fear involved of what would happen if the US actually decided to fully unleash, and where it would happen and how many more people would suffer. And it was just remarkable at the time watching the whole thing happen. And then you're seeing things that you grow up with, the two towers, it was a symbol of New York. And just to watch the planes go into them and, those buildings come down, it was not life-changing, it was world-changing. And there was a lot of, I was scared shitless of what was going to happen. And more to the point, was I going to get called up because I was, 20.
Ah, yes, and we had, ever will Australia be America's lapdog, but we had fucking bootlicker Joe in office, John Howard. God, he fucking fondled their balls, dude.
Yeah,
Him and Bush were great bros.
I was 31 at the time, so,
Fuck, you'd have been on the front lines.
Exactly.
Yeehaw.
Riding the bomber all the way down.
Yep.
You knew China were going to sit out of it because it's a case of please do us the favour.
Yeah.
Russia had enough. They were pretty much going, please do it. Please just... everywhere south of us, just take care of it.
Russia's like, well, you did this yourselves. You built them up so that they could fight us, and a bit of a epic backfire there.
Yeah, but unfortunately what it has done is now caused the United States to have the most veteran, experienced army in the world. And if you're watching what's happening in the Ukraine at the moment, believe me, veteran soldiers and experienced soldiers and field experience, it makes a huge difference.
So, Jeff, we were kids when that all happened. And this is the last question before we move on to the next topic. How long did it take? Now, you weren't. You said you were in your 20s. How long did it take you to no longer feel scared going forward in life after that date, being far removed in Australia?
It hasn't stopped. There is this underlying, and I think it's a Western thing that...
Yeah, pre-9/11 world.
And I'm seeing it in Britain as well. I'm seeing it in the US. I'm seeing it here. It's unfortunately a clash of cultures. And as much as I would love to say there is room and there is space for everybody, everybody's got to compromise. I don't see it happening on either side. And this is where, I'm a big believer in two wrongs don't make a right. So when it comes to something like Israel-Palestine, I don't support either side. I think they're both wrong. And I think there needs to be a sensible approach to the whole situation, but I'm not going to support either side. I think they're both wrong. And that's my belief and my theory. I'm not going to support Palestine. I'm not going to support Israel. They're both wrong. Be smart and figure it out. No, there's this whole underlying sense, I think, that, and it's always been the same with the Middle East and, Western culture in general, even before the Crusades and shit like that was happening. There was, the Caliphate in Spain and everything like that. And, it's just been, they've been at loggerheads, and it's geographical, it's belief-based, and it's very difficult for people to let go of beliefs, I think. And I know Western culture is very...
As they say, you can kill a man, but you can't kill an idea.
Yeah,
Mm,
This
yeah.
goes on to the next generation.
Yeah, I
Hence
don't think it's
Marcus.
going to resolve. I don't see it resolving in my generation. I hope to God it resolves in yours. But I think there is just too.
We are the children of the great nuclear apocalypse.
You probably will be, which is sad to say. Me, I'll be out there with my gloves on trying to catch it. But yeah, I just don't see it's resolving, and it's something that is ongoing. It is this. It's a different Cold War. It's Middle East versus the West. It's
I
going
was
to happen.
reading in the news today that there's been like 5 consecutive days of bombings in Sweden.
Yeah. France is another battleground. It's East and West are not mixing well. It is oil and water.
Wow. That's a good metaphor.
Great metaphor.
All right, what's the
All
next
right.
conspiracy?
So let's move forward here.